Being 300% honest, this video is going to cover a lot of different allegations, and I don't even have enough time to cover all of them. So I'll try and take the main things from these allegations, break them down into their core points, and present them to you. Sadly, I won't be able to do much critical analysis in this video because of how much information there is to condense down for this video, but I hope this video presents the situation to you in the best way possible that allows you to understand what's going on, and I do know this video is going to come out a little bit later than these allegations did because I've been taking so long off of YouTube for a break, but I'm back, and I hope this video does a good job of covering the situation and the allegations. That being said, don't go out and harass anybody mentioned in this video. This video is simply to present information and not intended to give you someone to go attack. Also, everything presented in this video is an allegation. I'm not making these claims with 100% certainty they're true. I'm just getting the information out there so that you can hear it. My sincerest apologies if this video becomes a train wreck. With that being said, I make videos every single day, so if you want to subscribe to stick around and see more content, that'd be appreciated. I'd hate to drag this intro out any longer, so let's get into it. Arcadum was a large D&D Twitch streamer with a following of almost 50,000 on Twitter alone, though that pales in comparison to his 250,000 Twitch followers. This information came to the public when a group of women, 10 of which I'll cover the stories of today, released threads consecutively explaining everything they'd experienced. Falcona's story reads, "I believe I was forced and groomed into silence about my experience up until this point. On the night of November the 25th, 2019, I was sexually assaulted by Arcadum in my own home. I invited Arcadum to my home in hopes to help him escape his supposed abusive household. He took advantage of me on the night of the 25th and used my emotional vulnerability to attempt and perform sexual acts with me. The night began normal, but once my roommate went to bed, Arcadum asked to scratch my back and play with my hair. Arcadum's hands apparently then wandered to places that they weren't comfortable with. They said they got the courage to get up from their seat they were in, and he also stood up and attempted to embrace them very close. They say they allowed it because they assumed it was a hug, only to feel his erection against their leg. They then apparently pulled away after the first hug ended, and they said they should go to sleep because it was very late. They put him in his room, and then he asked for another hug in the frame of the door. They agreed out of submission to his emotional distress, which led to him forcing himself against them. They claimed that their body was touched and grabbed at, purposefully avoiding their genitals and breasts to a degree. They say the line was crossed when he started kissing their neck and tried to hide it behind crying. They say they pushed him away and went back to their room. They explained that past trauma with sexual advances had taught them to just let it happen and move on, but that they've now realized that their mistake was remaining silent and not telling him to stop. They say they were terrified not only for their physical safety, but also because they feared for their career because it was deeply intertwined with his. They say they tried to tell this story in the past, but it got silenced by his ability to crush anyone and everything he'd want to. They then continue to explain the emotional abuse they'd experienced. This can be summed up to him responding lol to them explaining that they were stuck in a terrible situation, and generally this once again highlights his terrible behavior towards people around him. These stories seem to conclude with the idea that Arcadum does not actually care about anyone but himself, and will exploit anyone to get what he wants. Kelly Siren's story reads, "This is never something I wanted to do. Arcadum had been someone I considered a close friend for 3 years. Recently, a lot of girls in the community were banned and evicted from his servers. I was one of them. I for one was also booted out of the collective group where the music team I had assembled and led all worked together. This was apparently because Arcadum's partner had seen the private messages between him and other girls. This is a claim that's repeated by many other people in this story. Arcadum would open up to Kelly Siren about personal trauma he'd experienced, and Kelly said that she wanted to be there to support him. Things apparently started to shift when he suggested that they should comfort him in other ways than just words. This apparently led to him saying, 'I'm really sad, is it alright if I hug you?' which led to flirting and then more. Him asking to touch their character's breasts. They found that if they were hesitant at all, he'd get really weird about it. He'd blame himself and wonder what was wrong with him. They say that whenever they would get with him on VR chat, it would lead to him asking for sexual desires. One day they mentioned that they didn't want to do anything sexual, that they just wanted to chill with him, and it spiraled immediately into him being in disbelief, wondering why they'd even say that. He apparently went to a friend to complain about this, and said that it hurt him that they'd even assumed that was what he was trying to get out of them. After a long time of them supporting and comforting him, it led to a point where he'd randomly ask for sexual releases. Apparently these advances never felt right. They apparently said yes sometimes because they got tired of the constant asking, and because they were afraid of him dropping out of their friendship. They say that they were afraid of him. They claim that every time after, he would say sorry and ask if they really wanted it, proving that he knew he was harassing them. He would say that it would seem that they weren't even interested in it, and they say they wish they'd just told him no. He would apparently even make advances while they were streaming. He eventually started asking why they didn't feel comfortable doing sexual acts with him, and apparently he did this multiple times. He'd constantly ask if he excited them, if they had feelings, if they found him attractive, and that they didn't like that he'd put this pressure on them all the time considering he knew in detail what they were going through. They say they realized now that he was doing this to multiple girls simultaneously, and that apparently he asked them out. He'd also constantly remind them, all I've ever tried to do is help you. He would do this in a seemingly manipulatory way. He wanted them to tell him who they were intimate with. He pried into their personal life, and they couldn't believe that he would put the pressure on them, dumping on the fact that he loved them after he disrespected their privacy so badly. He started going behind their back and confronting any guys he thought they were talking to. If they mentioned hanging out with them, he would approach the guy, tell them that he had feelings for them, and ask what their intentions were with them, despite them making it very clear to them that they were not interested. People then started distancing themselves from Kelly. When confronted for this behavior, Arcadum told Kelly that it was their fault for being weak and not talking to Kelly anymore. He would constantly ask if he was the closest friend to Kelly, and that he didn't like if they were getting close to other guys that weren't him. He explained that he did all this behavior because they wouldn't tell him who they were seeing, and that he had to know, so he asked guys he thought they were seeing. He would apparently call Kelly and lecture them that they get too close to people too quickly. He made excuses for needing to know this information because apparently he needed it for the integrity of the game so there wouldn't be drama. They just wanted to be friends, but he made this into something shitty with their invasion of their privacy. They also provide screenshots of them confronting him about this. This behavior is incredibly concerning. This is so predatory and manipulatory, forcing himself into their life, forcing sexual advances on them, and forcing romantic advances on them even when they say they aren't interested. On August 25th, he said he had to call them. He mentioned being forced to block all the women he's had sexual interactions with because his DMs were seen. He said this was temporary and that he was doing this so that he could talk to his girlfriend and resolve this, a claim repeated by other girls. This led to a few more days of this confrontation until eventually they said they were leaving. And as a final note in this document, they provide evidence that Arcadum started editing their messages to clear his name. Another allegation comes from Lyra, who says, "It has come to my attention that Arcadum emotionally manipulated multiple women, including myself, for comfort and sexual desires. And now this information has become public, he's removed or blocked a majority of them so that he can better his relationship with Tiffany." They explain that they told a very personal story about their sexual assault and divorce with their husband to Arcadum, after which Arcadum became much more intimate. They explain that quite logically their personal trauma has allowed them to be more vulnerable to manipulation. They claim that Arcadum exploited that. They detail how Arcadum made them feel special and that he was the only one they could trust, knowingly or not. They also explain that Arcadum asked them to date them, and that they said it was too early in the friendship for an answer to that, and he cried and started listing issues in his personal life. They also continue to explain that they had a personal friendship with Arcadum and that he wanted personal lap dances, and that even though they're asexual, they used to be prideful in their lap dances. They claim that Arcadum asked a couple of times and they said they'd rather just stay as friends, and that he would apologize and say how much of a terrible person he was for asking, while in the same sentence insisting that it was because they were special and that he loved them and how much he wanted it. They then provide evidence showing that Arcadum had either edited messages years later, kicked people from chats, or deleted posts. However, they do have proof of a post that he didn't edit of him being lonely and looking at their pics. They allegedly confronted Arcadum for what he was doing with another woman, and Arcadum said that she wasn't the only one he was going to for affection, that he was looking for other people, and that he never lied, with them distancing themselves from him in response. They also touch on how he would gaslight them, manipulate them, etc., basically highlighting his continuous behavior of manipulating her. They also explain how Arcadum was claiming that Falcona was going to try and cancel them for roleplay drama, and that he wanted Lyra on his side. One of these allegations was made by a Twitter user called Momo, who said the following. They explain their experience being groomed by Arcadum, saying they do this to save future women that may have a possibility of being manipulated. They say they first made contact with Arcadum on May of 2020, and that they ended up spending a long time together. Arcadum got comfortable enough to tell this person about their relationship with their girlfriend. Momo explains that they've experienced abuse in many unfortunate circumstances, so when someone comes to them expressing forms of abuse, they immediately try to help that person. They say they made the mistake of letting Arcadum know that though, and that after that point Arcadum would constantly go to them more and more. They explain that Arcadum started manipulating them and grooming them into believing other people that were in their life did not care about them. They explain that this manipulation led to them being incredibly depressed. They explain many other ways Arcadum abused them, including how Arcadum would apparently lash out at them with jealousy and anger, and that would soon turn into sympathy to mess with their feelings. They then talk about their detachment from a group of of friends because Arcadum was not very welcome in that group, and that eventually their relationship with Arcadum became stressed, and they explain how his manipulation continued. They end this thread by saying that on Thursday night, August 26th, Arcadum called them and said that something happened with their girlfriend and that they were going to block and ban all the girls they were involved with. They then continue to explain how it would appear that Arcadum was just trying to sweep his wrongdoing under the rug. Cry45's allegations begin by them saying that their experience with Arcadum was vulnerable from the start, that they were hoping to help grow their RP experience while they were at rock bottom living in a spare room, and that they reached out to Arcadum after meeting him and saying that they wanted to do free work. They claim he started hitting on them and that they recall having a sense of obligation since he bought them a VR headset. They explain how through this relationship he would flirt and kept promising grandiose ideas. However, after a while this became strictly professional. However, there was one night that ruined their summer. A valid concern was brought up by a staff member and Arcadum went off on them. Apparently it was uncalled for and friends tried to talk to him in private to tell him how he messed up. Instead of addressing this situation, he started hitting on Cry45 to distract himself. They recalled telling him to stop but also reminding him that he wanted professional boundaries, trying to highlight his hypocrisy, but he continued. They claim they bit their tongues since he streamed shortly after while they were dealing with flashbacks of PTSD from an assault. They claim that he started them on a spiral of PTSD where they didn't sleep for days, needed to be hospitalized, and how he manipulated them and used them like a pawn knowing they were vulnerable. They also attach an audio clip at the bottom. Sadly, this audio clip was too long to include, so I'll just put it on the screen. Naomi's story, titled The Arcadum Experience, provides a lot of evidence. The first evidence they provide is 3 screenshots from Giazzo with the date January 19th, 2020. The screenshots show how one day out of nowhere Arcadum started venting about his domestic issues, and normally that's a fine thing between friends. However, the preceding conversation felt like pity baiting and pressure to engage in lewd behaviour. They then provide more screenshots from June 14th, 2020. They explain how they'd been discussing a recent stream when suddenly he started talking about relationship troubles, and that he really needed a release. They say they didn't like where the conversation was going, so they told him to go to the public. They say it felt like an attempt to make them pity him to the point of doing something with him. They then touch on an experience that they had with Arcadum in VR chat, where they went over some pleasantries and then Arcadum started talking about how pent up and repressed he was feeling. That he was desperate to feel like a man again and asking if she was lonely. He apparently kept moving closer as he was saying these things as she kept moving away and trying to shift the conversation. They apparently kept moving the conversation away until he seemingly got bored and said he had to go. We then jump forward to June 30th, 2020 when there was a confession. This apparently happened one day after Arcadum asked out Kelly Siren and got rejected, and that this was while he was still publicly dating Tiff and actively talking to other women. He asked if he could call Naomi and said he would like to request to formally court her. She said she turned him down because she was interested in someone, and that later down the line she tells him she's still here for him and that she hopes he'll be able to speak up next time he has feelings for someone. They then provide a recording from January 11th, 2021. Again, I can't attach this, so I'll put the link on screen. They also provide some context for that call if you need it, and you can read these timestamps in your own time if you'd like to. They then attach another recording that happened August 20th, 2021, again link on screen. And again, these are the timestamps. They then continue to explain a clip that they'd have with Arcadum where he started randomly talking about their ass. Then they continue to provide a segment where they provide support to Kelly Siren, saying that they were there alongside what Kelly was experiencing with Arcadum, and providing support to them. They also attached their support of Falcona, saying that they've had one biting disagreement but never thought they were a bad person until what Arcadum did. Arcadum allegedly called them multiple times and trash-talked Falcona, saying she was a liar, abuser, and trying to ruin his life. This will actually come up again in another victim's story. It would appear that he was trying to paint Falcona in a terrible light and get the support. They end this document by saying they've defended him in the past, but that was before they knew all they know now. Somersault's story reads, my experience with Arcadum and his business. Summer and Salts talks about how they got along with 2 people in a group they'd met and how Arcadum started messaging them whether they were interested in these people romantically. They say this felt off-putting because it was out of nowhere and a very personal question that was none of his business. They say they ended up inviting him to a D&D group they wanted to run later on. They then explain how in their eyes Arcadum threw a temper tantrum because he wasn't in a group of people that explained and taught someone how to play D&D, despite the fact they'd pinged him multiple times but he wasn't online. Summer explains how the following day they sat down to watch a show with him and he vocally berated them. He scolded them for not hanging out with him as much. After this experience, Arcadum seemingly acted like this never happened, and they then kept their distance because they didn't want to experience that again, but they would continuously get the why don't we hang out more, I'm sad messages. They then explain how he only wanted to hang out with them when he wanted pity or when he wanted someone to pat him on the back. They then explain Arcadum's business ethics. I'm not going to read much of this, but it does end by saying that he would fire female employees and remove female streamers that he tried to pursue, and that him doing this doesn't fix the issues that have arisen. The Empress Red story says, since the 21st of July 2020, they've been friends with Arcadum because they met from their mutual friend Kelly in VR chat. They provide a screenshot of the start of their chat history where they started talking to each other and added each other after after their first talk in VR chat. They explain that Arcadum has supported them financially in the past for paying for a whole new computer. They say they didn't ask for it and that they were in fear of it being used against them later on. They would apparently hang out with Arcadum every day and watch TV shows together, and they would share a lot of their personal and professional problems. Allegedly, he would come to them for comfort and to confide with them about his relationship with Tiffany and the apparent abuse that was going on. They say that because they've been through similar relationships, it pulled in their heartstrings and made them sympathize. However, this apparently was also followed immediately by sexual advances, him saying that two consenting adults can help relieve each other, and how unattractive Tiffany made him feel. They say that because they weren't in a good place mentally themselves, they reciprocated these advances, but that was only because they were told that Tiffany and them weren't together anymore and that they were finding a place to relocate to. Apparently, this led to emotional manipulation, where they would be asked to do things for him, saying it would make him feel better and saying things to make her pity him. Apparently, after a while, they lost interest because they believed that nothing was going to change. There's also apparent proof that he tried to edit things much later. They say that they eventually found someone else that they had eyes for and attempted to initiate something with them seriously, however it did not work out, and while at first Arcadum was apparently very supportive, apparently he turned their back on them and said that he was ready to drop everything for them. However, they apparently chose another person and that destroyed him. Uzuri Mia, a VTuber's story, reads, Arcadum was my friend, someone I looked up to because I saw how hard he worked in the community. That being said, it was around June of 2020 and we started hanging out more in VR chat. He seemed like he wanted someone to hang out with and someone to talk to, and that none of their DMs gave indication of anything weird, just two friends chatting. Then he apparently wanted them to start dancing for him privately. Another claim repeated from other testimonies. He apparently started to gesture to come outside of the watching room and asked them to dance for him. On July the 1st, 2020, he asked to get in a call with them and he started asking how they were doing and went into how he found them attractive. He told them how he wasn't getting any affection or didn't feel attractive and how he wanted ERP with them in VR chat. They'd apparently just got out of a relationship and they were not comfortable or attracted with him in the slightest. They said he should go to couples therapy, but he said he wouldn't do that. He said that he'd apparently separated from his partner and that he was planning to leave them but was looking for someone to help with sexual release. Uzuri apparently told him they were flattered but were not comfortable with that because they could get attached, which they say wasn't the truth and they didn't want to say they didn't find him attractive. He apparently continued to push to get them into a call and eventually they put their foot down. They highlight how this pattern of predatory behavior has continued with multiple women. Arcadum released a very unpopular response to these allegations on September the 2nd. This tweet longer reads, To everyone, the past few days have been a difficult time for a lot of people, including my family, friends, and the entire community as a whole. For me, it's been a time for personal reflection. There have been many stories and feelings shared about some of my actions over the years within the D&D community. I have been processing a lot and want to address matters as best as I can. I realize I will not be able to repair much of the damage that has been done or properly share my full perspective, but I owe an explanation and apology to all those affected. The truth is, I have developed and engaged in a wide range of relationships with people over the years, some of them leading into sexual territories and times when I made mistakes and was selfish. I never sought out relationships purely for sexual purposes, and to be completely clear, I have never engaged in non-consensual activity. These were relationships that developed as genuine friendships. I greatly valued these friendships and still do, yet I have been unfair to many of them and I am sorry for the hurt I have caused them. In addition to being unfair to my friends, I have also been unfair to my wife Tiffany. Last week, Tiffany became aware of these relationships and my communications with people that crossed boundaries within our marriage. Understandably, she was heartbroken, and I tried to do as much as I could to salvage the situation. This included attempting to edit and delete messages I had shared with different people, as well as reaching out to them explaining I would not be able to continue any sort of association. This was a painful experience, and as a result I have learned and reckoned with many of the mistakes I have made. One of the things I regret the most is that I've now hurt people who I have greatly cared for over the course of many years. People I've confided in, and who've confided in me. These people have genuinely helped me overcome personal challenges when I needed their support, and who I have shared truly meaningful experiences with. It has become clear that I've betrayed those friendships, and again I'm deeply sorry for that. I want to be clear and encourage everyone to support Tiffany during this time. Tiffany has been my truest friend. Even with my mistakes and all the ups and downs, she has shown me a lot of grace over the years. She will always be a part of me and I will always love her. To those who have been reaching out, I'm sorry I've been unresponsive. I don't know where to begin with explaining or apologizing to the many of you I've let down. I have removed myself from many communities as I don't want to cause any further harm, and I will not be streaming as I continue to reflect on my actions and seek therapy. In the meantime, I wish nothing but the best for everyone involved in the wider community, and I think this apology is generally pretty bad. Not only does he fail to name a single one of the victims, but he doesn't go near touching on anything he's done, nor does he actually address his behaviors. And while I do think it's good he's removed himself from these spaces, won't be producing streams, and is apparently seeking therapy, this response reads like a PR post, not dissimilar to a response from a company like Activision addressing any allegations against them. Knowing more than 10 women have come out explaining their heartfelt stories with Arcadum, and their response is a meaningless apology. It doesn't even begin to cover the pain he's caused. But on the note of this being like a PR apology, a response from the VTuber Fruit reads, "I'm assuming you found your PR representative you were talking to me about, which may mean my PR presumptions are true." Fruit's other public response reads, "It has been a lot to take in today and I am disappointed." Silverveil also released a longer response to this situation, and there was a response from Nyanas that reads, "This has been a really overwhelming, shocking time for many people and it breaks my heart. Those who were put through this situation are in my thoughts and have my support. I'm deeply sorry that this has affected so many. I hope everyone will be alright. Please take care." And with that, I believe I've covered everything I need to with this situation. I've been recording for the last almost 4 hours now, and I hope this video has presented the situation in an unbiased way that allows you to get everyone's side. My heart truly does go out to the victims. I will be running a charity on the right of this video. It would mean a lot if you could provide some support to it. And with that being said, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, it would be highly appreciated as I'm aiming for 100k in the next 2 years. Thank you for watching. I've been HarleyTBS. I'll see you next time, and peace.
Says she wanna rock with a nigga like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with a nigga like me. We can catch a fly. Says she wanna rock with a nigga like me.